Miami fans have seen it happen way too many times over the past 2 decades, but this Miami Hurricanes team is determined not to let one loss turn into more than that.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and host of Postgame on the Hurricanes Radio Network. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download FanDuel today. On this loaded episode, we'll talk about the challenges that come with the Stanford game on Saturday. There's going to be some important recruiting visitors at the game, by the way. We'll talk about Miami rediscovering their balance on offense, which includes rediscovering a rushing attack. It's been a tough two-game stretch for them. And we'll talk about the determination by these players not to let one loss turn into something that's going to define their season. No one better to talk about all of this with than the man, the myth, the legend, our boy Blue, Larry Blustein from WQAM 104.3, the Six Ring Cane, Prep Red Zone, Florida. So, Blue, I know you've been following Miami as long as anybody. Are you getting these vibes from the fan base that now they've lost a game, it's going to happen again, or two more times or three more times? Are you getting that vibe?
Oh yeah, you know that. I mean, this is Miami. This is the panic city, and obviously, it's some things are warranted. Okay, you alluded to it, in your monologue just now when you came in, the running game. What happened, and then in the first couple of games, we kept hearing about Coach Dawson's offense. Oh, don't worry, he's trying to be a little bit vanilla. He's not opening up the playbook, but we're into this season now, and we got to see a lot more. And I think that a lot of people with the repetitive, same thing with Malachi Tony, same thing with CJ Daniels, and then tackle to tackle running. And what happened to all the other weapons? What happened? And me, what happened to Elijah Lofton? This kid, you got him parked in the garage, and other than him running the wrong way on one of the routes, I thought that was probably the funniest thing of the week when they go, well, we had a receiver run the. Did they do it 4 times? I mean, did they run it 4 times? I mean, you have 4 picks. I mean, it's time to, he's a great recruiter. I mean, a great coordinator, and we saw that. But I think in the Louisville game, we also saw an offensive mind in Braum who utilized a bunch of guys. And that's what I think. Miami's got the athletes. They're loaded in, different facets of the game. We just got to start using it. We got to use some of the, forget about hiding anything. You don't have time anymore. We're ACC.
There's no more hiding.
No, ACC football right now, the rest of the way, no days off, no weeks off anymore. We kind of used our free passes, those 2 off weeks really quick. And now it's ball game time and when you and I talked last time, I said, after the Bethune-Cookman game, there's no off days. This is going to be, and it was. You jump on FSU, and then you got to hold on for dear life in the fourth quarter. Florida also battled. So, yeah, there's no easy games against anybody. So even Stanford, you saw what they did last week, and albeit it's a Florida State team, it's in disarray. It was still a win. It is still an ACC win.
Yeah, and if nothing else, I'm glad Miami saw that. Like, I'm glad Miami saw that, hey, Florida State played far from their best game against Stanford, and you can lose to anybody. Like, Stanford is objectively, talent-wise, one of the worst teams in the ACC, and they beat a far more talented Florida State team. So you see that can happen to anybody. And on this whole concept, Blue, of what every Miami fan is afraid of is, losing more games. I had the opportunity to ask Mark Fletcher a question about that, and I consider Fletch to be like the emotional leader of this football team.
Sure.
I think he's got an incredible level of maturity and attitude. And if they lean on a guy like that, I think they're going to be okay. And, the way that I worded the question was to Fletch is like, how do you avoid letting this loss define you? And he said, like, you absolutely can't. He said, we kept shooting ourselves in the foot and lost by 3 points. He said, Louisville is a great team, but we can't continue to shoot ourselves in the foot, not executing, and expect to win the game. I told everyone, he said, don't panic, get back to work, get back to what we're good at, and we're going to be just fine. And Larry Blustein, when it comes to the players that make up this roster, these young men better than most. You covered a lot of these players, including Fletcher, going back to their high school days. Like, do you believe this team has the mental, emotional, and physical makeup to bounce back in a way that a lot of Hurricanes teams in the past didn't?
Yeah, I do. I really do. I just think that, from a coaching standpoint, I'm not talking about playing standpoint, but from a coaching standpoint and decision making. And there's no finger pointing. It's just out black and white. What's going on is that you're running tackle to tackle. And then all of a sudden, Louisville and FSU say, well, wait a minute. What are we putting all the emphasis on the outside? We just stack the box with 6 and 7 guys up front, and we'll stop this running game because they don't go outside. You look at Brown and Fletcher, and they're big backs, and they're not guys that are going to bust things outside. It's time to take, Lyles and say, hey, listen, you're here for a reason. You're a speed back, and you stretch the defense a little bit. And listen, I'm not against not putting Malachi Toney in more running situations too, because as you saw, he could throw. So he's a dimensional guy. I just say that if you're, the first couple of games when we heard say, well, you know what, we're not opening up the playbook because we got a long way to go. Well, now you don't have that long. And I think in this game would be a perfect deal. This is the first meeting ever between the two schools. The second time that Stanford's ever come to Miami. They were here for a bowl game. So you're going to have a lot of new fans that are Stanford people from the East Coast that are going to come. The Condoleezza Rices of the world, who hadn't had an opportunity to see. So you're going to have a pretty good contingent. So you know what? This is a game, you can't worry about who's on the other side. Not if you plan, you look at teams like Ohio State, and I heard Kurt Signetti the other day. We can't worry who's on the other side. We got to worry about us. And that's what I think Miami needs to do more of. Don't care who is on the other side. Play your game. Play what brought you in, and play what got you to the number 2 ranking, a couple of weeks ago. So, I just think it's a pivotal game for a lot of reasons, because this is something that Miami has an opportunity to bounce back, but be mindful that there's no more dress rehearsals. It's all, this is it. If you plan on making, especially with the way Georgia Tech is playing, if you plan on making that ACC championship game and being one of those 12 teams, can't lose anymore. That's it. It's over. The losing is over.
Well, a compelling stat I'll have for you guys on this Stanford matchup when we come back. Plus, I want to dive a little bit more in with Larry Blustein on what it's going to take to get that running game going again. Held to 63 yards and 2.6 yards per carry, which was their worst statistical output in a couple of years. Worst 2-game stretch for the running game since 2021. Got to get that going again. You want to keep it locked right here. We got our boy Blue, Larry Blustein, with us on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Guys, one of the tools that helps make a huge difference for business owners is Quo, formerly Open Phone. It's the same great business phone system you've heard me talk about before, just with a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or computer, so no more carrying 2 phones or relying on a landline. I love how Quo, formerly known as Open Phone, lets your team share one number and collaborate on calls and texts like a shared inbox so no customer gets left hanging. Their built-in AI agent is a game changer. It can answer after-hours calls, capture leads, and keep business moving even when you're off the clock. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly Open Phone. Get started free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedoncollege. That's QUO.com/lockedoncollege. You can even keep your existing number for free. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. We're also brought to you by FanDuel. Miami's favored by 30.5 points against Stanford on FanDuel this weekend. The NFL is here, college football in full swing. FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I built parlays, I've tried player props, even follow the live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We're joined by Larry Blustein, who is one of the most respected names in the industry, a mentor of mine, and I'm so glad he's here to break down Miami Hurricanes football with me. You know, Blue, I mentioned no pressure to Miami, but I mentioned during the break that the Hurricanes are favored by 30.5 against Stanford. Just an F. That's a huge number. And honestly, I don't care if Miami covers that number or not. I just want to win and win comfortably. So I looked up what's been the biggest upset in college football so far this season by the point spread. It was when UCLA beat Penn State as 25-point underdogs. So
okay, wow.
If Stanford can pull off the unthinkable this weekend, it would be the biggest upset statistically of the season so far as 30.5-point dogs. Obviously, if Miami lets that happen, we have big problems. Yeah. We're not going to lose this game, I don't think, Blue.
No.
But Stanford's going to try to make history.
You know what? It's one. They have nothing to lose. I mean, they're coming, east to west to east, which is never easy. Neither way is easy, but it's west to east. So you get acclimated. They came down here early, a couple of days early, which is smart.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the whole thing, because remember, with now in this college day and age, you could do all your studying on computers, so they can take their classes from the hotel room, which is and a school like that, you know, as well as I do, they're not in favor of missing many days. Believe me. I mean, you know, it's like Harvard and Miami too. Same thing. Miami's great educational system. But yeah, you know, you look at, there's not a lot of kids from the state of Florida playing out there, but one of them is a significant running back, and Cedric Irvin's son, who comes from Miami, Christopher Columbus. And Cedric obviously was a tremendous football talent. So, you know, you have a couple of kids that, you know, and the whole thing, it's a global university. So when you go, just like Miami, you know, went to Cal last year, and you get it, and in basketball too, when Miami went to the West Coast, you get an opportunity to showcase, you know, your school that really rarely gets an opportunity to see, you know, this environment. So it's going to be big for them. And but Miami can't make the game any bigger than it is. You know, I mean, the whole thing is they understand their assignment. I just think that, you know, when it comes to, you know, personnel, you look at Miami's personnel, and even if, you know, and people kind of like scoff, but if you're only running for 60 yards, you got to use everybody you have. And that includes the young kid Pringle. Because I think that they get, you know, somewhere along the line, if they get, you know, because he's a guy who's got that breakaway speed. You need more than a tackle deal. You really do, because anybody can figure it out. Southern Mississippi, anybody. So it's not going to take Stanford that much to, you know, to line up 6-7 guys in a box and do a lot of what FSU did and what Louisville did. So, you know, don't give them the opportunity. They, you know, it's sort of like they say, you know, don't let the team play with you, because the longer they're going to play with you is the longer, more confidence. And that's what happened with Louisville, because Miami really never stung them back. And, you know, and when you turn, and here's another thing for Hurricane fans, while you're sitting there berating everything in the world, remember this: they turned the ball over 4 times, had 120 yards and penalties, and still were in the game into the last minute. So
that's right.
Yeah. So that shows you that Miami's got the goods. They just got to kind of use everything.
And that's one of those things why, and people who listen to this show every day know that, like, I'm not big on blaming any loss on one person, which is, I see a lot of people do that. Like, Miami loses this game, it's all Mario's fault, he does this every year, or it's all Dawson's fault, or it's all Carson Beck's fault. It's like, there's blame to go around, and I think Miami would say this, that anytime you lose a game, it falls on everybody. Like, there's blame to go around for this, Blue, and something, of course, when you talk about the running game and getting more variety in it, tell me if you feel the same way. I think that the time that Jordan Lyle missed in the early part of the season has really kind of hurt the team to this point, because the last two games when they've put him in, I know people will criticize the play calling. Why is Lyle running inside when he should be running outside? It's still like, and I think Lyle is a tremendous running back, but so far when he's been in the games, it's looked discombobulated. So I'm hoping that in a game like Stanford, where I would imagine Miami's going to be able to build a lead in a game like this, Lyle is going to get more opportunity to kind of get back into the rhythm of the offense, because we're going to need him down the stretch of the season.
Well, that's a key, and you make a great point. You just can't keep putting people in for a play and taking them out, because then they don't get into the flow. I mean, it's sort of like, you're an MMA guy. If you come in there and all of a sudden, you land a couple of haymakers, and then all of a sudden that's all you do, and then you're sitting there fighting for your life. You've got to get into the flow of things, and that's one of the things that I think that is important. If you're going to give him carries, give him carries. Give him series, Don't just put him in for a play and then take him out, because you're not getting him into the flow. That's not what his game's predicated on. So, I just think that they, listen, coaches can be at fault. That's the whole thing, because we always hear, oh, well, he's a great coach and he did a great job. It's the player's fault for not being in that position. Well, you know what? Coaches can make the wrong calls, and from a personnel standpoint, and I think that's where everybody's accountable. And you just made a great point, because this is not an individual game. It's a team game, and the team game means everybody. It's not just like, oh, well, Mario called a great game, and but everybody implemented it, so that's the one thing about football. And I think that in that week off, from, beforehand, I don't know of how much they worked on that. I think there were more, because if you remember the FSU game, one of the things that was said at the end is, boy, Miami's not in great shape. They couldn't hang on. They're barely hanging on, and they're the team that works out in the heat and all that. And I think that they worked a lot more on the cardio coming in the Louisville game than they actually did the actual game plan, because there were a lot of iffy things in that game, and I think they're going to be ironed out. I'm an optimist this week. It's 30 points a lot, but I don't look at the spread. I'm with you. Win the damn game. I don't care if it's 30-14 or 30-20. You come away with a win, because all of a sudden you're going to start having to go to Dallas, and then you're going to have to go to, even though Virginia Tech's not playing well, it's still a road game. And that game after Thanksgiving at Pitt still looms big, and that could be a game. That could be the game, that may propel them in or out of the championship game.
It could be the same situation that we had going into
Syracuse
last year.
Right?
Could be the same.
Yeah, you never know
situation. Here's a quote from Shannon Dawson this week on Miami's running game. I know some fans who really read into this like it was discouraging to them. I am of the mind that to me, actions speak louder than words. And I don't necessarily think your offensive coordinator is going to give away game plan before the final 6 games. But Shannon Dawson said, our run game is what it is, he said. We need to execute it better. There's times when we have things and we miss it. I don't deflect any blame from that. I have to stick with it. I have to package it together a little better probably. But ultimately, we just need to keep doing what we're doing, and I have to stick with it. We just have to execute better. So the way that people read into that is, no, we're not going to start adding new running plays or running to the outside or toss plays or more jet sweeps. So I guess the fear would be we're just going to keep running between the guards. I don't necessarily know if that's what he's saying there, but I understand how to fans it can come off that way.
Well, yeah. And not only that, though, Alex, the one thing, too, is all about coaching is adjustments. And
Yeah.
so the opposition makes their adjustment to stacking the box to sit,
Right.
walking a seventh player up. Now, as an offensive coordinator, you've got to make the next move and readjust. And that's the one thing I think Miami's had a tough time, that they make their move, somebody else makes their move, but they don't make it back. And they're just going, oh, well, we're powering the football. I don't care if there's 12 guys in that box, but you can't be like that. No successful team is. I mean, I don't care who you are. And in NFL or whatever, that's why you have coordinators. That's why you watch film. That's why you look at tendencies. So Miami has to come up with, hey, listen, they got 6 guys. They're walking a seventh. I'm going to back his ass right off the damn thing. I'm going to throw a screen, or I'm going to use my tight ends, which is almost like sacrilegious now at Miami. And I don't
you can't say that. You'll be imprisoned like Galileo for
I'll tell you what,
suggesting something like that.
On our podcast, I just mentioned that they've got to start using their tight ends. I mean, they've got some really good ones, and all of a sudden, everybody was taking me apart, saying, I'm saying that they're leaving. No one's leaving. It's just that you've got to be in a situation where you have a guy, and I keep bringing Elijah Lofton in because he's the guy over the last 2 years. If you remember in practice, they go, oh yeah, we don't have a running game, and Elijah carried 9 times for 156 yards and was pulling away from everybody. Or Elijah made a throw to somebody, coming out of the backfield. Or so you've got to use with what you have, because certainly I can envision him lining up, maybe going in motion, going the slot, and being paired with a safety and blowing him away. And so that to me is, you've got personnel, you got to start using everybody. I mean, and I don't think they are. And we could see it. Seems like the same rotation. Oh, Malachi's there. CJ's right there.
Right. I mean, I don't want to let Malachi keep doing what he's doing.
Oh,
but
no.
Right. Oh, sure. No, I know, and I know you agree with that. But also, in terms of using more wide receivers, I mean, we haven't seen much of Josh Moore since he had what looked like a breakout game against USF, and then of course everybody's got their conspiracy theories on JoJo Trader, who I know he's been working his way back. He played just 1 snap last week, and I root like hell for JoJo. I mean, I talked JoJo so much up in the offseason. I want to see him earn his opportunities out there, so I'm hoping Josh Moore can get back into the rotation and JoJo Trader can get back in.
But it's funny that you mentioned that, because isn't that the scuttlebutt in pregame in the press box with the media is, hey, I saw JoJo. He was dressed today, and that's crazy for a guy who hasn't really been in the flow. That's the first thing people say. And, like last week, the line mysteriously went from 14 to 10 and in a day. And everybody before the game is doing their little check. He's here. Bain's there, Messidor's there, because they're figuring, why did it go down that much? Yeah. Usually it's a reason, like your quarterback's out or your receiver's out or your offensive lineman, and it wasn't the case. So I don't know. Maybe the odds makers or people who do that knew what was going to happen, but you can never predict 4 interceptions, especially from a guy that doesn't really throw them that well. And that was a game. That was the game. And that, and then the penalties, stupid penalties that shouldn't be made in game 5 and 6. And there's a lot to iron out. And that, I mean, we know the talent's there. We saw it. We've watched it. We know that, Miami's capable of beating anybody. But at the same time, that, as I always said, remember when Miami was recruiting and, Miami's doing a great. I said, yeah, but the other schools aren't sitting on their hands. They're doing the same thing. I mean, here's a kid like Isaac Brown right in our backyard, Homestead, and had a monster game last week. And, he came up with some tremendous plays. And, you look at a guy like Miller Moss, who was kind of kicked to the curb by USC. And that's the thing. Then you get in a situation where you got the personnel. Now you've got to be proficient at using them. And that's where I think the question's been the last couple of weeks is we got the talent. Why don't we just use a few more of these guys? And maybe this week will be the answer.
Well, when you mention recruiting, I guess the silver lining of losing on a Friday night is there weren't many recruits in the building to see it because, Friday's a difficult visit night because most guys are playing their high school games. Got some important visitors coming in this Saturday, though, for the Stanford game. Want to talk about a couple of those with Blue when we come back. You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on Locked On Canes. Folks, Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Nappa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen. For your next listen, make sure you check out Locked On ACC. Kenton Gibbs and I take you through the conference, all the big storylines. Locked On ACC is available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. All right, so Larry Blustein, a couple of the important visitors who are going to be at the game this weekend. Iowa State decommitted wide receiver, someone Miami has been very active in recruiting. Wide receiver Milan Paris will be at the game. He's a big target. Defensive end Dre Quinn from the Atlanta area will be in. What can you tell me about these players as Miami's looking to really solidify and add to that big class of 2026?
Yeah, both of the guys are elevated guys. These are, in this day and age, especially where Miami's at in their recruiting, they've got to take kids that are going to take them to that next level. They just can't come in and blend in, and both of those kids can. I mean, Milana's really good. Like you said, I mean, he's a guy that Iowa State swayed because of the fact that how they use their receivers. And that's what Miami's, and that's again, Alex, when these recruits are coming to the games, they're watching too. So if they're going, oh, wait a minute, where is so-and-so? Where's JoJo? I mean, he was as good as me or better than me, and he's not on the field right now because they don't know. No one explains things. You know how things are. So that's really important when these recruits, because, if a lot of these people are asking me, like in the pregame show when I talk to Brian Monroe, and he'll say, how important is this FSU game for recruiting? How important is this Louisville game for recruiting? Well, every game is going to be important because Miami's gotten so far with the Notre Dame game, even with the USF game, with the Florida game, probably three of the most productive recruiting games or opportunities that they may have had in forever. Look at how many kids were at those games. And that's the thing. Even last week, you were talking about being on a Friday night, but ironically, a lot of schools last week played Thursday. So when I went, and I usually drop before I go inside, I was talking with Joe Z as we were walking in, and, he went inside, and I usually take a walk down to where the recruits are coming in just to see who's there, and I was amazed at how many kids. So you get those type of guys here, and you've got an opportunity, Alex, to kind of let them see what their future is going to be. But because isn't that what the recruiting's all about? You're going to come in and you're going to go, wow, they have 5 receivers and they're all young. This may not be a place for me. But if you have a guy that maybe you see like a CJ Daniels, who he's here just for a short time, you go, that could be me next year. Look at, I played against Malachi last year, and now Malachi is like a huge part of this offense, if not 80% sometimes. But that's how important recruiting is. And I think both of the young men that you mentioned are guys that are definitely, key guys. If Miami could get them to come in, in January, that this class, and that's why I said, you look at, the change at the University of Florida. Well, remember this, Florida's got one of the top 2026 classes going.
Yes, sir.
So that means that you've got to, either throw yourself on top of those before they mention, or you look at Miami. Who's Miami's defensive back? Where was he last year? University of Florida. He recruited Stubbs. He was the one who recruited Ben Hanks. So you never know. You never know what you can happen, because I know when Miami was going through those the coaching change, a lot of schools came down and kind of preyed on their kids too. So
yes,
Miami's got to fight back and do the same.
By the way, we got some breaking news this morning. It's uniform related. Now, I tend to be partial to the traditional colors. I like orange jerseys, white pants at home. I like the stormtrooper look, the white on white on the road. Sometimes you have special occasions. So here, Blue just announced this morning is what Miami is going to be wearing this Saturday for the Stanford game. They are officially going with the special edition military appreciation.
Wow.
I fully support the cause, supporting the armed forces, the people who make the ultimate sacrifices for this country. I respect the fact that that Miami is honoring them. I'm a little bit iffy on the actual look of the uniforms, but you know what? I will say something, Blue. I will say, I had seen the photos circulating of these, like the fan version of these jerseys, like hanging in the stores, and I'm like, that's kind of ugly. It doesn't look bad here. And by the way, let me describe it for the audio listeners. So Miami is wearing camo, special edition camo military appreciation jerseys, camo jerseys, like the camo gray colored pants, special black helmets that you don't typically see them wear. So they're going military appreciation this Saturday, and I'm open to it, Blue, because it looks better like on this jersey. I guess that's Wes Besaint. I'm assuming that's really him. He's wearing his number. Wesley Besaint looks pretty badass in that uniform, so I'm gonna roll with it with an open mind.
I agree, and then that's why sometimes I love to watch the Army-Navy games, because they come out with some great uniforms.
Yeah,
what's wrong with that? That's why being an Oregon fan is not so bad, because you don't know what they're gonna wear each week.
Could be anything.
Miami's come out, like you said. If it works, and I think that you said the just the fact that we're saluting the servicemen and women and what they've do for our country on a daily basis. And if this is a reminder, let's get out and let's kick some ass. Because Wesley looks bad. For all of you can't see it. Maybe Google it out and see what Miami, or maybe Alex will have it on his. You could post it on your social media page so people can look.
Yeah. I will do just that. So we are officially, and I know that there was like a whole saga this week. Are they wearing the camo? Are they not wearing the camo? Are they just going to sell it to the fans but not wear? They are going to be. It was just confirmed this morning. Miami is wearing the special edition camo. Just win. Like I don't care what you wear.
You're wearing shorts.
Just win.
Yeah.
Just win. Huge thank you and shout out to our guy Larry Blustein. Make sure to check him out Monday nights on 104.3 WQAM on the Sixth Ring Podcast. Blue, thank you for all you do, and follow him on X at Prep Red Zone Florida. Thank you so much, Blue, for the time.
Back at you, Alex. Thank you.
And thanks, everyone, for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We'll talk to you next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.